legal public sex, love hotels, retirement homes for elderly sex workers? Grab yourself a margarita or a taco and sit back, because in today's video, we're going to be talking about the conservative rural customs and the open-minded vibes of Mexico's sex culture. Hello, everybody. My name is Ali. Welcome to my channel. On this platform, I like to talk about sex, relationships, and other fun stuff. And one of the topics in the other fun stuff is how different cultures around the world approach sex. Now, if you've been following me for a while now, you know that I love to travel and I do quite a bit of it. And somewhere where I've spent quite a bit of time in the last 4 years is Mexico. Now, I'm currently right there. As you can see behind me, I am in the middle of the jungle. Now, Mexico has an incredibly rich, diverse, and fascinating approach when it comes to sex and sexuality. It is a country that is full of contrasts. So on one hand, you have urban areas like Mexico City, which are incredibly progressive with thriving LGBTQ+ communities, accessible reproductive health services, open attitudes. And then you have more rural areas, which are way more conservative, dominated by religion and traditional values that make conversations about sex very limited or non-existent. This country is huge and has such an incredible, rich history. I wish we could get to everything in this video today, but I don't think we will be able to unpack it all. So if you like this video, if you like this content, make sure to give it a like and the channel subscribe. And let me know in the comments below if you want to hear more about sex culture around the world and in Mexico. All right, let's dive in. The first thing we're going to talk about is dating in Mexico. So as I mentioned before, Mexico is huge. It is home to one of the largest cities in the world, Mexico City. So the dating pool is quite extensive. However, depending where you are, you'll either encounter traditional values or modern trends. So for example, in rural areas, they tend to adhere more closely to conservative, more traditional family values. In more traditional households, parents might still have a strong say or influence in terms of who you're dating and relationships. Catholicism has historically shaped Mexican culture, so promoting chastity and the idea of saving oneself for marriage. But once you venture into more urban areas like Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, places with significant tourism, attitudes towards sex and dating are very, very different. Urban areas also have really big kink, fetish, swinger, LGBTQ+ community. So whatever you're into, you're bound to meet someone who's into the same thing as you are. Let me share a quick story with you. Mexico is probably the place where Gab and I have had the most fun, where we've dated the most people. So we would often use dating apps, and we met a lot of foreigners, but we also met a lot of locals. Most of this took place in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, or Mexico City. And I remember in Mexico City, we met this girl who was kinky AF. We went on a date with her to probably one of the best taco places I had ever been to. They have this incredible chicharron from Monterrey that is just like to die for. Anyways, on the second date, she came over to our place, and let me just tell you, it was hot, it was erotic, it was sexy. It involved her being like propped up on the kitchen counter. OMG. I think I'm going to save that story for my Patreon because there's just some things that I can't really share on YouTube freely. If you want to hear the story of the kinky Mexican girl, obviously she has a name, but she shall remain anonymous, you can check out the story on my Patreon. And speaking of my Patreon, it is a platform where I often share exclusive content, more details of stories that I share with you on YouTube that aren't necessarily YouTube friendly. No, I don't get naked on my Patreon. I often post vlogs of places that we're traveling to, and there's a lot of community engagement, and I love to pick your brains about certain topics. And it's just my little intimate hub, and it's a really great place to support me as a creator. So you can join for free, or you can join by contributing something. And keep in mind, if you contribute, you are promoting and supporting the growth and maintenance of this channel. Because of the nature of some of the sensitive content that I post online, YouTube doesn't always monetize my content. So it's an incredible help, and I just want to say a big thank you to all my current Patreon subscribers. All right, moving on. So prostitution is actually legal in Mexico, but regulated differently depending on what municipality you are in. So some cities have tolerance zones where sex work is allowed, but under government oversight. Workers in regulated areas must register and carry a health card and get regular health checks. However, unregulated sex work, pimping, and sex trafficking is still highly illegal everywhere. Despite this legality, sex work is still highly stigmatized, heavily influenced by Catholicism and traditional gender roles. There are definitely double standards that surround female sex workers that receive harsh judgment, while male clients do not. But there are a lot of organizations that are currently doing a lot of work to help support sex workers in terms of the stigma and the societal attitudes that they are faced and the limited healthcare that they receive. So for example, there is a former sex worker called Carmen Munoz in Mexico who established a shelter for elderly sex workers. Motivated by the lack of support for aging women in the sex industry, her shelter offers food, accommodation, health services to those in need. I'm actually going to put a link in the description of this video if you want to get more information and if you want to donate to their cause. And there is another sex work organization in Puebla that is called Chicas de la 14, which is a civil association of over 60 sex workers led by a woman called Mariela Gonzalez. And the group collaborates with local health services, ensuring they receive essential health services in the most respectable and timely way. All right, let's move on to interesting fact number 3. Public sex is legal in Guadalajara. Guadalajara is Mexico's second largest city, and the city has legalized public sex as long as nobody complains. The law change aims to reduce police extortion of couples caught in engaging in public sexual acts, which was actually a common issue, believe it or not. So the reform allows sexual activity to take place in public areas as long as no one makes a big deal about it. And the lawmakers hope the change will allow police to focus on more serious crimes than just a couple kids making out in the corner. Crazy, right? All right, let's move on to love hotels. Now, love hotels exist in many places around the world, but Mexico is definitely known for their array of love hotels. They got many of them. So a love hotel is a short-term private accommodation for couples. These are mostly found in urban areas like Mexico City, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and they offer a discreet space for couples to reconnect. And also, not sure if I mentioned this before, but in heavily touristy places like Cancun and Playa del Carmen and Mexico City, sex tourism is a significant factor, with international clients contributing to the demand for sex work, which translates the need for some of these hotels. So in these hotels, you can rent by the hour or rent by the night, and all of them have different types of setups. So some are, sexy vibes with pools or jacuzzis. And when I mean pool, I mean like full on pool, nice sheets. Some of them have furniture that are meant, to help facilitate certain sex positions. Some are a little bit kinkier with like St. Andrew's crosses, traditional piece of equipment in the BDSM community. And Mexico is also home to bigger and less discreet adult-only sex hotels. So you have places like Temptations and Desires, which are basically a large adult playground with a 24-hour buffet, all you can eat and all you can drink. If you want to check out a video of mine I did a while ago about my 24 hours at Temptations Resort in Mexico, you can check that out. I will link it at the end of this video. Side note, friends, if you're curious to know what a love hotel really looks like in Mexico, you can do so by checking out the vlog that I just posted on my Patreon, where my partner and I went to go check out one of these places, and we were definitely surprised. So if you're curious and you want to see, you can click the link below this video to check out my Patreon, to check out the Love Hotel vlog and all the other exclusive content that I have on there for you. All right, so here's another interesting fact for you. Same-sex marriage is legal nationwide. So Mexico has been making strides towards inclusivity. In 2010, Mexico City was the first place in Latin America to legalize same-sex marriage. And then in 2022, the rest of the country followed. By the way, if you haven't been to Zona Rosa in Mexico City, it is a very famous district and is considered a cultural and nightlife hotspot, featuring a variety of art, music, and is a hub for the LGBTQ+ community. Next, we have machismo culture. So machismo is a deeply rooted cultural concept in Mexican culture that emphasizes traditional male roles. So while it celebrates traits like bravery and honor, it often comes with problematic behaviors as well, such as hypermasculinity, so aggression and dominance, control, so men asserting themselves over women and family, and emotional suppression. No space for vulnerability there. And for women, the counterpart is marianismo, idealizing women as morally superior, but confined to traditional roles. So these double standards shape attitudes towards sex and relationships, perpetuating taboos and a lot of infidelity. So this can be very problematic in dating because then men are expected to always be the first movers and always perform well and know how to have sex and know what to do and be good at sex. And this can put a lot of unnecessary pressure on a lot of people. And in contrast, this doesn't leave a lot of room for the woman to assume her sexuality and to make the first move, to be the teacher, to lead the way and initiate and so on. Finally, speaking of all this sex, what happens with sex education in Mexico? Well, sex education is a work in progress still. It's still a little inconsistent and met with a lot of resistance from conservative groups. Catholicism still has a powerful grip on Mexican society, influencing attitudes around premarital sex, contraception, and LGBTQ+ rights. Virginity and traditional gender roles are still very much encouraged. And because of all this, it leads still to high teen pregnancy rates, limited access to sexual health education in rural areas, and pushes from younger generations for more comprehensive programs. So this is just a glimpse into the fascinating interplay between sex, culture, and societal norms in Mexico. I realized after making this video that there is still so much information and so much details that haven't been said in this video, but we're just gonna have to save that for another video. There are still also certainly many things that I don't know. I am currently, learning with you all as I go on this journey of learning about sex and different cultures around the world. I actually want to speak firsthand to some of these people involved in these organizations. I've tried to get in touch with a few of them. I've tried to get in touch with a few sexologists that live in Mexico, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a hold of any while I was here. But I am going to be coming back in 2024, so I hope to get in touch with some of these people and speak to them firsthand about their experiences with sex and culture in Mexico as locals. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to hear that fun little erotic story with the cute, kinky Mexican girl, you can check my Patreon by clicking on the link below this description to check that out. And you also have links to some of the organizations that I talked about in this video if you want more information or if you want to donate. So muchas gracias a todo y nos vemos en la próxima video. Adiós, hasta luego.